afternoon, boys and girls. And how are we doing today? Did you have a good lunch? Okay, well, welcome back to the afternoon session. And for today's class, we'll be looking at science. What will we be looking at today? Science. And for our topic for science, we'll be looking at sinking and floating. Now, for today's class, children, we will be identifying objects that float, objects that sink. We'll be doing an experiment to see objects that float and sink. We will also be looking at demonstrations, and we will also be doing a virtual game. So pay attention and let's get started. Okay class, so teacher is coming around and she's passing around your two little paddles. One says sink and one says float. Now what are we going to do with these paddles? So teacher is going to show you a video and you are going to hold up your paddle if you think the object would sink or if the object would float. So let's look at the video.
Float, sink, float, sink. What about this metal spoon? What do you think? It sinks. Let's explore, let's find out what floating and sinking's all about. Come and join me, let's find out. Will it sink or float? Let's try something heavy. What about a big old key? Will it float like the leaf? Let's see. Will it sink or float? It sinks, sink, float, sink, float, sink, 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 float, 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 floating along like a boat. Some materials sink down, 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 when others just stay on the top floating around. So what's it all about? What makes things sink or float?
Okay class, how many of you enjoyed that video? I see many smiling faces and many hands up. Very well. I'm glad that we all enjoyed that video. So, now that we have seen the video, we should be able to list at least 3 items that float and 3 items that sink. So, I will call on some persons to list some of these objects for us. Sarah, can you tell the class what's one object that sinks? Sarah said the key. Very good. What about Jeremiah? Jeremiah, can you tell us one object that sinks? Jeremiah said the coin. Very good. Let's ask Sarah. Sarah, what do you say? Do you think the feather would it float or would it sink? Sarah said it will float. Okay. Okay, class. So now that we understand objects that float and objects that sink, we will now look at what density has to do with that. 3. Density is a measure of how heavy something is compared to its size. The sentence continues, everything around us is made up of tiny molecules. Okay class, so now that we learned about density, let's look at sinking. Say this word with teacher, sinking. Very good. Now let's read. In some objects, these molecules are closely packed together. The objects where the molecules are closely packed together have a higher density and will sink in water. So the objects that have the more closely packed molecules, they will more likely sink. And we have some examples here. We have the rock, which is being tossed into some water. We have the shoe. The car is also being plunged inside of the water, and the metal spoon is also submerged in water. Now in all 4 of these pictures here, we are seeing that these objects are going at the bottom. They're not floating up to the surface of the water, they're at the bottom of the water. Okay class, so now that we're going to look at sinking, let's look at floating. Let's read. The loosely packed molecules in objects are less dense and will float in water. The larger the area in contact with the water, the better the object will float. Now in floating, we are saying that the molecules in the objects are less dense and they will float. Now let's look at some examples. We have the boat, the swimming rink, the feather, and the empty bottle. And all four of these pictures, or all four of these objects, will float in water. And you would have seen some of them around. You would have seen many litter, many garbage inside of the waterway, and the bottles are floating off at the top. Now, many hollow things like empty bottles, balls, and balloons also float. That's because air is less dense than water. The chart is saying that things that are less dense will more likely float. Class, so teacher is now going to show you a demonstration on which we can tell if objects float or if they sink. Now what I have in front of me here is a little small tub with water inside, and we have our different objects today what we are going to test out. She's going to pick up an object, so let's start with this styrofoam ball. Let us predict. Do you think this styrofoam ball, I will pass it around. Alright, so feel that object in your hand, and I want you to predict and tell teacher, do you think that ball will float or would it sink? Yes, Jeremiah? You said that the object will float? Alright, let's test this out and see. So let's collect back the ball and let's put it into the water. So teacher is going to throw the ball into the water. Everyone, come closer to the bucket and let's observe. What are we noticing here happening to this spear? Miranda said that the spear is floating. Okay, so what we predicted at first, we said that some of us said that the ball will float. So is our prediction correct? Comparing our results to our prediction, are we correct? Alright, so our spear we predicted would have floated and it floated in the water. Alright, let's look at our next object. So our next object is a metal spoon. Teacher will pass this object around again. And I want you to hold the object in your hand and for you to feel it. Does this object feel heavy? Does it feel light? Do you think this object will float? Would it sink? Marianne said it will float. Okay, there's only one way for us to test this, and we will do the experiment now. So we would have made our prediction. Let's try and put the spoon into our bucket of water. Alright, come close to the bucket. Let's observe what's happening. Okay, class, what do we observe is happening here with the spoon? Go ahead, Peter. Peter said that the spoon fell at the bottom of the tub. Yes, that's an observation. Do we say that this object floated or did this object sank to the bottom of the tub? This object sank to the bottom of the tub. Okay, class, so now that we would have done that demonstration where you saw the objects, they either floated or sank. So now you are going to get the chance to experiment. So teacher would have placed you into groups, group 1, group 2, and group 3. And each person in the group is going to get a task to do. So teacher is going to come around now and she's going to share out some materials to each group. So each group is going to get their own materials. That's group 1, group 2, and group 3. Okay, class. So now the teacher would have shared all the materials for the group, I'm going to come around to each group and I'm going to explain the task to be done. Now I want you to listen. So group 1, teacher is going to come around with your sheet of paper. So what task do you have to do, group 1? So you have to write your objects. So let's say you are using a straw. You are going to write your object straw in this box. Now, what is your prediction? Do you think that the straw will float or will it sink? You are to tick in this box. Do you think the straw will float? You write a tick. If you think the straw will sink, you write a tick there. Now, when you're finished with your results, by placing the straw inside of the tub of water, whatever results you would have gained, you are going to write it into the space. Okay, now group 2, teacher is going to bring your paper. Now you have objects, prediction, and result. Now in the object section, you have to draw your object. So if you would have used an eraser, you are going to draw the eraser in your object section. Then you are going to make a prediction. If we put this eraser in the tub of water, would it sink or would it float? You are going to write your prediction, sink or float. in the prediction column. And then after you would have done the result, you are going to write your answer inside of the answer box. Group 3, you are going to fill out your result sheet. Now here's what you are going to do. Now where it says object, you have to paste your objects in these columns here. Now let's say you use the matchbox. You're going to take the matchbox, paste it inside of the column, and then you are going to make a prediction. Did your matchbox, do you think this matchbox will float or would it sink? Now after you would have made your prediction and placed the matchbox inside of the tub, you are then going to see like your results. Now did the matchbox actually floated or did it sink? Okay class, how many of you enjoyed that experiment? Great, I'm seeing many smiling faces. I'm glad you had fun with that experiment. But now we have to come to our results. So let us analyze and let us see what our results were. So coming to group 1, share your results with the class. So group 1 used the objects feather, metal spoon, empty bottle, matchstick box, and the straw. And they indicated that the predictions were that the feather would float, the metal spoon sink, the empty bottle sink, the matchstick box float, and the straw would float. And I would have seen you tally up your results at the end here. Now to group 2. Now group 2 would have had to draw on their items or their objects. So I see group 2 drew the pencil, the cork, the metal clamp, the feather, and the balloon. And group 2 would have made their predictions, and then they also had their results. Over to group 3. Group 3 had to paste their items. So they pasted a matchstick, a button, a metal clamp, a balloon, and a plastic fork. And group 3 task was to circle the answer. Now group 3. Okay class, so now that we would have concluded our experiment and discussed our results, we will now go ahead into our virtual game. Now teacher is going to pass around the laptops and we are going to begin our virtual game. Teacher's coming around, passing around the laptops. Okay class, so we have a word search activity here. And how do we complete this virtual online game? Now, like our word search activity, we need to check for the words that are in this word search here. So the words are balloon, button, coin, eraser, feather, matchbox, matchstick, metal spoon, pencil, and plastic cup. So you are to look for those words within this puzzle. Teacher is going to come around to assist. You have completed your puzzle. Teacher is going to ask you to tally up your points. So let's look at the solution for our online game. We can see that these are the words here in the puzzle. So you should have these words. Okay pupils, so how many of you enjoyed that virtual online game? Alright, I see many hands up. Alright. Now, how many of you got 10 out of 10? Okay, I see a few hands up. How many of you got 9 out of 10? So teacher is going to check your answers when she collects your paper. Okay class, so teacher is going to ask you some questions before we leave today. Can you name one object from today's experiment that you noticed would have floated? Experimented that floated. Okay, Lillian said that she noticed the plastic fork floated. Okay, what about Alice? Alice, can you tell us one object that would have sunk today? Okay, Alice said that the metal clip. Okay, Alice, thank you very much. Okay, class, so we would have reviewed our objects that sank and floated. Class, so your homework for today, so you will test at least 5 other objects in your home to see if they float or if they sink. Okay class, well I hope everyone would have enjoyed the lesson today, and in order for us to conclude our lesson today, we are going to grab our paddles and we are going to sing the song with floating and sinking. So grab your paddles and get ready.
Float, sink, float, sink. What about this metal spoon? What do you think? It sinks. Let's explore, let's find out what floating and sinking's all about. Come and join me, let's find out. Will it sink or float? swing, baby swimming chair. Blow them up with air. Paddling pool, beach ball, little blow-up boat.